We have to talk about Jonah for a minute because he's a real case. Jonah chapter 1. See, when God started giving me this message a long time ago, and I began to see that all of these people that ran always ended up back where they ran from, and they all ended up in the wilderness. It was pretty enlightening to me. Now the word of the Lord, verse 1, chapter 1, now the word of the Lord came to Jonah, the son of Amittai, saying, arise and go to Nineveh, that great city, and proclaim against it, for their wickedness has come up before me. But Jonah rose up to flee, run, to Tarshish from being in the presence of the Lord as his prophet. Now, if you look at a map, where he was when God spoke to him and where he ran to, he ran the exact opposite direction of what God told him to go in. Exact opposite. Come on, do we ever do the opposite of what God tells us? And he went down to Joppa and he found a ship going to Tarshish, the most remote of the Phoenician trading places that are known. And he paid somebody to take him on the ship, and you know, if you read the whole thing, you'll find out that, man, they were in a violent storm, and finally they kind of figured out it was him, and he said, well, just throw me overboard. And then they waited for a little bit, and then finally they said, okay, we're throwing you overboard. And verse 17, chapter 1, verse 17, now the Lord had prepared and appointed a great fish to swallow up Jonah. And Jonah was in the belly of the fish. I guess we could say that was a wilderness. What do you think? And let me just say this the kindest way I know how. If you run from God, God will prepare something to swallow you up. God will prepare some kind of circumstance that you are not gonna like. And it may be equivalent to being in a whale's belly for a few days. Well, finally, Jonah prayed to the Lord. Now, isn't that a brilliant thing to do? It's a shame we don't do that before we get in the whale's belly. And then he goes on, he prays a pretty good prayer. It's amazing what good prayers we can pray when we're desperate. I mean, this is really good. Then he said, oh Lord, I've been cast out of your presence, verse 4, and your sight, yet I will look again toward your holy mountain. Just all really good. Verse 9, but as for me, O God, I will sacrifice to you with the voice of thanksgiving. I will pay that which I have vowed. Salvation belongs to the Lord. And the Lord spoke to the fish, and it vomited out on dry ground. So, if you're in a place you don't like, you better get down to praying. And chapter 3, verse 1, I read all that to say this. And the word of the Lord came to Jonah the second time, saying, arise and go to Nineveh. God didn't change his mind. Jonah took a detour and he didn't have much fun. How many of you right now are on a detour from God? He's told you to go this way and you're going that way. I got a few hands, few honest people. That's good. The truth sets you free. Well, we don't like to admit all this stuff, do we? Come on. Now remember, let's get it where you live. I mean, running from God can even be something as simple as refusing to go make peace with somebody that you know you need to go. Running from God can be as simple as you're letting somebody manipulate you and control you, and God's telling you to confront them. Come on, let's get it where we live. Running from God can be him saying, don't put anything else on those credit cards. Oh my. Let's get the ones paid off you got. Running from God could be changing the way you eat. Well, that went over good. People are always gonna go on a diet after Christmas. It just cracks me up. I am gonna go on a diet, but after Thanksgiving. Can I tell you something? If you want to be a real warrior, go on a diet on Christmas Eve. Otherwise, you got another couple of days with the frogs. And you know what everybody else is going to hear? You're croaking. Did you hear me? I said, and everybody else is going to hear you're croaking. Because when we don't do what God tells us to, we end up with stinky circumstances and we always complain. So now here comes the good part. People frequently run from their own sin. And one of the ways that we can run from God is staying so busy working for God that we don't have any time to listen to God. Ooh. Well, I'm just busy serving at church. I'm on every committee. And you got a mess of strife in your home. Come on. I mean, you know, I'm sorry, but there's even a lot of pastors, people in leadership in churches, and they're so busy serving God that their own families are falling apart. I love the story where the man, I forget now which miracle it was, but Jesus set some guy just so free. I mean, healed him, cast out demons, or he couldn't see or something. And the man wanted to go with Jesus in and travel with him. And he said, go home and show them what great things I've done for you. You know what? I expect you to go home and act different. I didn't promise when you came that I could change all your circumstances, but I believe if you listen to the word that you can change, you can go home different. And you know what? When we change, our circumstances don't bother us as much. And so I can't make everybody else do what they should do, but God wants to deal with me. With me. Now, the two biggest ways that we run from our own stuff is through making excuses and blaming other people. Well, I act this way because I was abused. Well, I act this way because I was born on the wrong side of the tracks. Well, I act this way because I never have a break in life. Well, if you didn't treat me this way, I wouldn't be upset. If you acted better, I'd be happier. Okay, you know what? It's really time for us to take responsibility. It's time for us to take responsibility for our behavior, our life, our messes, and stop blaming them on the devil, God, everybody else around us, our misfortune in life. In Romans chapter 2, verse 1, it says, therefore you have no excuse, our defense, our justification, whoever you are, if you judge another person. For imposing as judge and passing sentence on another, you condemn yourselves, because you who judge are habitually doing the very same things that you judge other people for. Now, why would we do that? Here's why. We make excuses for ourselves, but for somebody else, there is no excuse. If I'm in a bad mood, I had a bad day at work and traffic was bad, and that's my excuse, and you should understand that. But if you come home and you're in a bad mood and you say you had a bad day at work, well, there's no excuse for you to come in here acting like that. Oh, this is so good. So anyway, we all have an excuse bag. And to be honest, you really pretty much have it with you everywhere you go. It's not as out in the open as mine is, but I just got to show you that we've all got one. And so, man, it is just full of stuff. Oh boy, I got excuses in here coming out my ears. Well, I can't do that. I'm afraid. So, who's not? Well, I don't feel like it. Well, I don't know how to do this. I've never yet gotten to do anything for God that I knew how to do when I started. When God told us to go on television, we weren't even smart enough to know we needed a producer. I'm telling you the absolute truth. We had one camera. You should have seen the first TV program. I mean, I am telling you the truth. We were in a little hotel ballroom and the tiles were falling out of the ceiling. And it was a real low ceiling, and you don't film for television in a low ceiling. It just looks ridiculous. And our backdrop was a blue shower curtain. But here's the scary thing, it was anointed. So see, it's not about what you know how to do, it's about what you will let God do through you. And in order to do that, you can't be a coward. You got to be willing to step out and just see what God will do.